All right, so this is Shelby, and Shelby, I'm going to show, without showing the guardian's face, was sitting right up here. And now Shelby came down here because Shelby's getting some attention from down here. But I asked if Shelby or if the dogs nudge for attention, which Shelby does. How about Toby?
Not so much.
Not so much.
He,
Okay. Yeah. Now, throughout this session, we've only been at this for maybe 20 minutes, and I've noticed the guardian profusely petting both dogs anytime they got near her. So in Toby's case, it may be a situation of I get petted so much I don't even have to ask for it. Shelby, being a younger dog, is still kind of figuring things out. So when it comes to petting a dog, I consider petting a dog our way of paying or compensating them. Now, most people have things that they have to do at work they don't particularly like doing, but they do anyways because they're paid to do so. But imagine what kind of employee you would be if you had a job where you just did whatever you wanted to do and you got paid for it. You wouldn't be a very good employee, probably. So for dogs, if they come up and nudge us with their nose or scratch at us or bark at us or jump up on us to get our attention and we give them our attention, what we're telling the dog is, yes, you're the boss of me because when you tell me what to do, I do it. I verify that you are the boss of me by doing that. So what I do is next time the dog nudges you or scratches at you, instead of petting, ask the dog to do something for you first to earn it. Sit, come, or lay down are the three things I like. Now, the reason for that, now, come is probably not going to be applicable because they've already come to you. That's
right.
But sitting and laying down are more subordinate positions. When Toby sees a dog and he wants to be aggressive towards that dog, he doesn't lay down.
No.
We were talking about earlier. He makes himself look bigger. He raises his head. His ears come forward. His tail goes up. So for dogs, we want to make them feel good about what I call desired behaviors. And taking a more subordinate position for me is a desired behavior because I don't want the dogs challenging humans for authority, especially for Toby because he does do that. So next time they nudge you, tell them to sit. As soon as they sit, then pet them. Now, when it comes to petting a dog, if you pat a dog on top of the head like this, a lot of times their head orientates down, and a nose down orientation is typically indicator of a body mechanic of an insecure dog. When a dog is proud about what it's done, its nose is parallel to the ground or tilted in the air. You've probably seen either one of them with like a shoe or something, a high value item they're not allowed to have, and they got the nose as high in the air as they can because they feel really good about themselves. So whenever petting a dog, I want to facilitate that body mechanic of a positive. So when I pet a dog under its chin like this. I can facilitate that nose up orientation. Now, at first, it's going to be hard for you to do this. What I recommend usually is we stop petting the dogs completely unless they earn it. And earning it, we ask them to sit or lie down or come. That's setting the bar pretty low. Now, the way that I like to do it, I like to use a hand motion, and we'll see if I can do this here with this Toby. So I start with my hand like this. It looks like I'm holding something. So I have my fingers just slightly cupped. So if I want a dog to sit, what I do is I go in front of him, and then I go over the head. And then once it sits, of course I can't, there we go, then I scratch it under the chin. So this is a great hand signal to put the dog into a sit, and then you can start petting it. Now, anytime I give a reward, whether it's a treat or affection, I say the command word the exact same second that I provide it. So, sit. Now he stops sitting, so I pull it away. Now this is why I would recommend not doing the shake for a while. Because when a dog puts its hands on you, it's usually an indicator that it's not a good sign of respect. Now he's trying to do it to get a trick,
Right.
but it's still kind of muddying the waters and confusing for him. So what I would do is I usually recommend like a watchword, like paycheck. So if your husband walks in the room and he sees that you're petting the dog and it's standing up, he says paycheck, you throw your hands in the air and stop petting. Then you say sit or crash. And then you say sit or crash as you pet the dog. And then you can turn and tell him and say, honey, I actually asked the dog to sit before you came in. It just sat, it got up after I started petting and I continued to pet. Now, once you change its state or it changes its state for you on command, you can pet it for an hour after that if you want. It just has to start by changing its state. If it's sitting, we ask it to lie down. If it's lying down, we ask it to come and lie down somewhere else. Petting with a purpose, if you can get in a habit of doing it, what will happen is the dog will just come start sitting in front of you, looking up at you and saying, look, I'm sitting, shouldn't you be petting me?
Yeah.
And we should as much as we can. Now, this leads us to something I like to call passive training. Every time your dog comes and lays down next to you, pet it and say down, or lay down, or whatever you want your command words. Every time it comes and sits next to you, pet it and say sit. Crash. or crash or whatever your word is. Every time it comes to you, pet it and say the word come. Even though you didn't ask it, this is really classical conditioning. And so when the dog comes to me, I pet it. Well, actually, it's operant conditioning. The dog does something first, and then we come to it. And based on what it does, we give it a reward. If you get in the habit of doing it, just using that hand motion like this, sit, you'll do it without even thinking about it.
Yeah.
Every time you do it, it's a mini dog training session that you do without spending any time or effort trying to do it. And so you're not conscious about it, but every time you do it, it helps the dog build up a little bit more respect for you as an authority figure and helps it transition into a follower position. I like to say it introduces the concept of you have to earn it, and the currency is obedience. Petting with a purpose is the easiest thing that you will do for your dog that will have the biggest impact if you get in the habit of doing it. But if you do, for the rest of your dog's life, it's a great little obedience session every time you do it without spending any time or effort, right? God, are you guys cute? I see why you get in a lot of trouble. All right, that's petting with a purpose.